Hi, I'm Candace Renaud, and welcome to my action research presentation, a comparison of prerequisite Writing 1 and assessment placement student performance in a Writing 2 class. I teach college age and older, mostly older ESOL students at a community college in Texas. A number of studies have explored the challenges inherent in attempts to ensure students are placed at the appropriate level for their skill set, especially as it relates to writing. To begin with, students get into Writing 1 through an assessment testing process. They must have basic literacy skills in their native language and be familiar with the Roman alphabet. In order to pass Writing 1, students must show that they can write simple sentences, write simple descriptions and narrations about familiar topics, write a main idea sentence and several detailed sentences about that main idea, follow basic conventions of capitalization and punctuation, and follow basic spelling conventions. There are two ways that students can end up in a Writing 2 class at Jones Community College. First, Writing 1. To do that, they must have earned at least a C average. However, instructors are discouraged from passing students who have a very low C because it's believed that the student's skills still may not be strong enough for Writing 2. The other way students can gain entrance into Writing 2 is by assessment placement testing. At the beginning of the semester, any student who has not passed the prerequisite is given a timed writing test. They take the test in the testing center where they are given a topic about something they should be familiar with. Then they write about this topic for a specified period of time. Once they finish, they turn in their writing sample. We have one ESOL writing instructor from another campus who is dedicated to reading these essays. Based on her analysis of the timed writing, she assigns the student to a particular level. I've had the sense for a long time that students who arrive in my Writing 2 class based on their placement test results aren't as prepared and don't do as well as students who passed Writing 1. In talking with one of my colleagues who is teaching Writing 2 this semester, I discovered that she has the same thoughts, and we wanted to know if our perceptions are accurate. So we wondered, how could we find out? Well, our textbook quotes Schmuck, who says that action research is an effort to study a real school situation with a view to improve the quality of actions and results within it. And though action research is typically an opportunity to reflect on our own practice, since I'm not teaching this semester, this action research project seemed like a good opportunity to explore whether my colleagues and my perceptions are accurate, and if they are, perhaps approach the college about reviewing its placement practices. So what is our question? Well, actually, we realize we have three questions. First, how effective is placement testing in differentiating students placed in their first writing class and students who passed Writing 1? In other words, are students being placed at the right level to begin with? The second question was, how effective is the placement test in accounting for the curriculum goals of Writing 1? Are students who are placed in the class, or do students who are placed in the class have the same basic knowledge that students who come into Writing 1 have? And last, do students who are placed in Writing 2 perform as well as students who passed Writing 1? Writing holds a unique place in L2 communication. Though students may be proficient in spoken English, they may have little to no knowledge about how to write in English. For L2 students, learning to write may mean learning a new alphabet, as well as sentence structure, punctuation, grammar, and vocabulary, things that the student learning to speak English never has really to consider. A great deal of research on writing assessment and placement testing has been done because, as Crusans points out, writing assessment has always been problematic. The importance of responsible assessment practices cannot be overstated, particularly when the assessment measures influence critical decisions such as placement into composition classes, an act laden with pedagogical, ethical, political, psychometric, and financial implications. So It was really interesting for me to learn that writing assessment and placement has a very long history dating as far back as 770 BC, when the sons of noblemen who wanted to join the courts of the Chinese emperor were given a test and judged on their writing ability. Policies and procedures for writing assessment continued to develop throughout history and arrived in the United States around 1873, 1874, when Harvard University began giving applicants a written entrance exam rather than an oral exam. Ultimately, this kind of writing assessment was instituted for L2 learners as well. Another interesting fact for me to discover was that despite the long history of writing assessment and placement, no concrete theory of writing assessment has ever been developed. Based on the research, a number of authors have noticed the problem of students being placed in writing in the wrong level. As a result, studies have been conducted that point out problems with validity in writing assessment. Some of the problems noted are the kinds of grading rubrics used, lack of rater training, and the raters themselves. For example, Craig pointed out in his study that men grade harder than women. L2 raters grade harder on other L2 writers than L1 raters, and interviewing a student as part of the placement process can improve placement accuracy. The primary focus of his study was the influence of handwriting quality on rater scoring, and showed that handwriting quality is another area that can indeed influence rater scoring. He also compared written text to word processed text and found that raters scored the word processing texts lower than the handwritten text, even the messy handwritten text. He speculated that this may be because word processed paragraphs seem shorter and errors are easier to spot. Though a great deal of research has been conducted on assessment, testing, and placement, I was unable to find any research that compared the performance of post-requisite ESOL writing students to those that had been placed in a class. Although I did find a couple of studies that looked at performance in more mainstream college classes like accounting and business. These compared prerequisite performance to post-requisite performance and student placement. Since the results varied, no clear conclusion could be drawn from the studies. Only one study done at Miami-Dade Community College came close to addressing our question, but it focused on L1 students. Its results showed that most students who were placed into English and reading classes did better than those who passed the prerequisite. But the study also found that students who made an A or B in the English prerequisite did better than those students who made a C. Our study included 12 adults. We relied on the students to self-identify as to whether they had passed writing 1 or been placed in the class based on the results of a written assessment test. 4 students said that they had passed writing 1, and 7 students said they were placed in the class based upon their assessment essay results. 1 student couldn't remember taking a test but also knew he did not take writing 1. We decided to include him in the placement test group because my colleague felt like his skill level was within the range for the class, and also from my experience, though it's possible he didn't take a test, it's highly unlikely he was able to register for the class without it. The class included 9 men and 5 women of various nationalities. We didn't include 2 students in the study because 1 female student didn't take the first aid diagnostic, and we have not yet been able to get a response from one of the male students regarding his status because he's been absent. For the sake of confidentiality and to minimize bias in the classroom, I conducted the analysis. Names on the writing assignments were covered over and coded with numbers. We also used a pseudonym for the name of the college. Given that a number of research studies indicate that holistic grading can be biased, we decided a more objective means of measuring student results was called for. Furthermore, 2 of the learning outcomes for writing 2 are A, the ability to write simple and compound sentences, and B, the ability to edit for content and sentence structure. The college also conducts a system-wide assessment periodically to see how well Writing 2 students meet these learning outcomes. So taking these factors into account, we decided that a T-unit analysis was better suited for our purposes because it reflects the syntactic complexity of sentences and the students' learning outcomes, and according to Hewitt and Polio, is considered a more objective way to assess student writing. We analyzed 2 writing assignments. One completed the first day of class and the last one completed near the end of the semester. The first day of class, all students are asked to write a diagnostic paragraph. Its purpose is to give the instructor another opportunity to sort students into the correct level for their skill set. The college has established a very broad range and skill level for the class, and though an instructor may find that a student should be in either a higher or lower level class, it's ultimately up to the student to agree to be transferred. And I have to tell you, in my experience, it is not uncommon that a student wants to stay in Writing 2 regardless of what the diagnostic test says. Final grades for all writing classes are determined by a writing portfolio that includes 2 timed writings given near the end of the semester. The portfolio makes up 30% of the student's grade, and passing it is critical to passing the class. If a student fails the portfolio, they will fail the class regardless of their overall grade for the semester. For the first final timed writing, students turn in their first draft, and at the next class session, those drafts are returned so that students can make revisions. Once they've made revisions, they turn in their paragraph showing the changes they've made so it can be included in the portfolio. The final timed writing is completed on the next to last day, next to last class session. We establish a baseline for analysis by conducting a T-unit analysis of the first day diagnostic paragraphs. We also thought this might show whether the 2 groups start out at the same level. The date for the student's final time writing conflicted with the due date for this report, so we decided to use the revised first timed writing as the comparison set. However, the revised first-timed writing won't be completed in time for this presentation, so I'm presenting the results only for the diagnostic texts. Our T-unit analysis for both texts will include 3 measures: the total number of T-units, average number of words per T-unit, and total number of error-free T-units. For the most part, we relied on Polio's guidelines for T-units, word counts, and errors. We didn't follow one error guideline she set relating to comma usage between clauses. We opted to count them because they are taught in Writing 2 and are one of the learning outcomes for the course. The underlying theory behind T-unit or syntactic text analysis is that it is thought to be a way to analyze the syntactic maturity of the writer. A T-unit is made up of an independent clause and any dependent or modifying clauses. So a sentence that has 2 independent clauses correctly joined by conjunction with correct comma use would count as 2 error-free T-units. If a sentence has an independent clause and 1 or more dependent clauses, it's counted as 1 T-unit, but all words are counted. All words are counted in the T-unit. And if it has no mistakes, it'll be counted as one error-free T-unit. To analyze the data, I conducted a quantitative analysis by first using descriptive statistics to compare the number of T-units per essay for each group. Table 1 shows the comparison of the mean number of T-units and the standard deviation for each group. As you can see, the means are pretty close, but with a slightly smaller standard deviation for the Writing 1 group. Next, I looked at the average number of words per T-unit and the number of error-free T-units per essay. This graph reflects that information for students in the class that took Writing 1. The blue columns represent the average number of words, and the orange line shows the number of error-free T-units for each student. The next slide shows the same information for students who are placed in the class. As you can tell from this graph, one student was able to write using a lot of words but also made a lot of errors, while another student used fewer words but also made fewer mistakes. The last step of the analysis process for the diagnostic test was to conduct an inferential statistical analysis to determine how the two groups compared in all three areas. To do this, I performed a two-sample t-test where the writing one group was considered the treatment group and the placement test group was counted as the control group. The null hypothesis is that there's no difference between the two groups. Table 2 shows the results. So what does it all mean? First, based on the results of this analysis, essays written by the students that completed Writing 1 do not show a significant difference in the number of T units or in the average number of words per T unit in their diagnostic essays than those of the students who are placed into the class. The one area that does show a significant difference is in the number of error-free T units, which is noticeably higher for those students that completed Writing 1. So to answer two of our research questions, though I don't think the results definitively reflect that students were placed in the wrong level, they may show that the way placement tests are scored doesn't consider the learning outcomes necessary for passing Writing 1. And if that's the case, then students placed in the class may start out behind students who passed Writing 1 and not have the basic skill set required for Writing 2. The next step is that students are going to be completing their revised first final time writing tonight, which is April 26th. I'll pick those up and then I will analyze them using the same 3 T-unit measurements that I used on the diagnostic test. Once that's done, I'll conduct the same kind of quantitative analysis. After that's complete, I'll be able to address our third research question and finalize my paper. So I look forward to you guys reading the end of it, me finding out what the end of it is. In the meantime, thank you for watching my presentation. I've posted a question for you to consider under this link, and if you have any other questions or comments, please let me know. And good luck to all of you with your presentations and your AR projects. I look forward to reading your results.